Vladimir Putin has issued a chilling warning against Europe. He said if Europe wants war, Russia is ready now. But the problem is, after the war, there will be nobody left to negotiate with. That is chilling and scary. Obviously, US has called this a threat, and we're going to get into that just now. But before we understand, we need to see this. You see this man, US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and this man, Donald Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner, together drafted a plan for Ukraine and traveled to Russia to have a discussion with Vladimir Putin. So out of plan, Jared Kushner is Donald Trump's son-in-law. If it was in Africa, many people would have criticized Trump, saying that he's hiring family members to try to enrich them. Now, there's a difference. What is the difference? Jared Kushner, Donald Trump's son-in-law, is a billionaire in dollars. So he's a rich guy. Whichever the reason is, he's not immediately trying to enrich himself through politics. Whatever the reason is, unlike African situation, Jared Kushner is not trying to enrich himself through politics. Let's get back on track. Witkoff and Kushner traveled to Russia to have a discussion with Vladimir Putin and his team on how to fund a peace deal. They drafted a document of 28 points on how to get this done. But Putin issued a warning. This is the warning.
Мы не собираемся воевать с Европой, я уже об этом 100 раз сказал. Но если Европа вдруг захочет с нами воевать и начнет, мы готовы прямо сейчас. Если Европа вдруг захочет начать с нами войну и начнет ее, то очень может быстро произойти ситуация, при которой нам не с кем будет договариваться.
As you can see, the warning from Putin was not against Ukraine, but it was against Europe. And Europe has called it a threat. Now, the question is, why did Putin say that? Because we don't know Vladimir Putin to issue threats directly to Europe like this. Well, he's done this because he believes Europe could be an obstacle to peace. Vladimir Putin feels like Europe is trying everything they can so there cannot be peace. Let me explain. Now, the US drew a 28-point plan to end the war in Ukraine. What was the plan about? Number one, it said Ukraine must give up lands on the east. So all the region where Russia is possessed right now should remain Russian. Number two, Ukraine must cut up military size. They must shrink it down. Number three, abandon its NATO ambitions. So Ukraine must forget about NATO. On the paper, if you look at it, the plan looks very pro-Russian, right? Well, there's a reason to that. On the battlefield, Russia is winning the war. Now, the big problem is that this plan leaked to the media, and the Ukrainians and Europeans have found it. And that's exactly when the Ukrainians and the Europeans sat down to have a discussion and withdraw another plan of 19 points. Why? Because Ukraine feared that this plan could legitimize Russia's territorial gains. Number two, in Europe, some governments criticized Washington for drafting the term without the full European input. Again, you must ask yourself a question. We thought the war was between Russia and Ukraine. Why does Europe feel like they should have something to say on a war that does not concern them? Russia welcomed part of the plan, but insisted on recognition of annexed territories. These annexed territories cannot return to Ukraine, as per Russia. As you can see, the US is really trying to put an end to this war with Donald Trump. But Europe is urging Ukrainians to make stronger demand from Russia. For what reason? Listen to Vladimir Putin.
У них нет мирной повестки. Они же на стороне войны. И даже тогда, когда они пытаются якобы внести какие-то изменения в предложение Трампа, мы же это отчетливо видим. Все эти изменения направлены только на одно. На то, чтобы вообще заблокировать весь этот мирный процесс. Выдвинуть такие требования, которые для России являются абсолютно неприемлемыми. Они это понимают. И тем самым свалить потом на Россию сворачивание этого мирного процесса.
Putin says Europe is sabotaging the peace by making unacceptable demands. He says they're doing it on purpose, knowing that Russia will reject, so the war can continue. Now, why does Europe want the war to continue? If you look at both delegations, Russians and Americans, they look very happy. There's warmth in the room. Look at them smiling at each other, like nothing is there. But beyond that, unfortunately, there's no breakthrough, so nothing has changed. They agreed on certain words, but not to the end of the war. The war is continuing. And one of the big sticking points, one of the reasons why they cannot agree is territory control. Listen to Putin's advisor.
So far, a compromise has not been found. Some of the American proposals seem more or less acceptable, but they need to be discussed. Some of the wording that was proposed doesn't suit us, so the work will continue.
On territory, there are two main points on which they're not understanding each other. Number one is the Donbas. The Donbas region in East Ukraine, Russia controls about 88% of the Donbas, and Ukraine controls 12%. Russia wants Ukraine to cede the 12% to Russia. Ukraine says no, they're not going to do that. Number two is the territory of Crimea. You can see Crimea on a map. Crimea is under control of the Russians since 2014. But right now, they want the legal recognition of their control on Crimea. So basically to have it done forever. As you can clearly imagine, this is very tough on President Zelensky. Give up the land on the platter. It's not easy, but you have a choice because on the battlefield, things are not looking very good. And remember again, you must take Donald Trump's behavior, nature, demeanor into account. Donald Trump made a promise to end the war as soon as he became president.
As you know, I get along very well with Putin. I would tell Putin, gotta settle. I would tell Zelensky, you gotta settle. I would tell one, you're gonna load up with money. I'd tell the other, you're not gonna get any money. I would get a settlement in 24 hours.
And it's been 8 months. Nothing has occurred. Well, if Trump abandoned Ukraine, what's going to happen? Trump wants the end of the war. Europe doesn't seem to want it. That's why Putin is very angry. Trump has stopped giving Ukraine weapons and support. Well, temporarily until Ukraine signs the deal. The big question is this one. If Trump abandons Ukraine right now, can Europe take over? Can they arm and fund Kiev? Well, European leaders met together on this subject, and the answer is clearly no. They're not able to do that. Why? Because Europe is clearly divided. On what are they divided? For example, many European countries want to phase out the dependence on Russia's gas by 2027. But Hungary and Slovakia opposes this plan. Number two, some European countries want to use the Russian frozen fund in Belgium to fund the Ukrainians.
We have listened very carefully to Belgium's concerns, and we have taken almost all of them into account in our proposal that is today on the table of the reparations loans.
Well, Belgium opposes this and say, no, we cannot do this because it will be a violation of international law.
We are not seeking to antagonize our partners or Ukraine. We are simply seeking to avoid potentially disastrous consequences for a member state that is being asked to show solidarity without being offered the same solidarity in return.
So Europeans are not together. For the very first time, Vladimir Putin has been straight to the point with regard to Europe. If you want war, we are ready now. But trust me, by the end of the war, there will be nobody left.
Европа вдруг начнет с нами войну. Мне кажется, что очень быстро. Это же не Украина. С Украиной мы там действуем хирургическим способом, аккуратненько, так, чтобы, понятно, да? Это не война в прямом современном смысле этого слова.
You can hear Putin say that we're fighting Ukraine in a very specific way. What does that mean? Well, the Russians and the Ukrainians are brothers. They come from the same whatever. I mean, they are the same people. So, as much as we may say it's been 4 years of war, Russia has not really implemented the full scale of the war in the way it is supposed to be done conventionally. Russia has not shot any big missile over Kiev. It's not been done yet. They have not sent bombers to destroy buildings and stuff like that, like America will do. America will generally send bombers, bomb your facilities, bomb your airports, bomb your energy, bomb your communication, bomb your central nuclear, bomb your military, then send troops. Russia has not done yet. Now, Russia is telling Europe, you must remember, don't make a comparison on what we're doing in Ukraine, because what we're doing in Ukraine is not a conventional war. It's a very calculated war. We're trying to do the least damage possible. So you don't try, because with you, there's going to be nobody left to negotiate with. As you can see, America from some time has cut out Europe and discussing with Russia by themselves and Ukrainians. The question is, why would the United States of America do that? They're supposed to be allies to Europe. Is it because Trump knows perhaps that Europe want to continue the war for financial benefits? Let me know how you feel about this. It was a great pleasure. God bless.